Hello everyone, Dr. Michael Lamas here today for Teaching Subjects. Today we'll be exploring one of the most essential building blocks of the English language, and that is the verb to be. Now, if you've learned the English for any length of time, you've likely encountered this verb over and over again, but have you really truly stopped to understand its importance and how it functions? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do here today, so let's get started. The verb to be is what we call a fundamental verb. It's at the heart of understanding how we describe the world around us. So with it, we express states of being, conditions, or even the very concept of existence. Simply put, whenever we want to say who or what someone is, what they are doing, or even where they are, we reach for this powerful yet deceptively simple verb. Now, the to be verb has multiple forms. There's is, are, am, as well as the past tense forms was and were. So for the purpose of today's lesson though, we are going to zero in on the present tense forms is and are, as these are the two forms that you'll encounter most frequently in your day-to-day conversations. You might be asking yourself, why focus on the present tense? Well, that's because mastering the is and are is the first step in crafting clear and precise sentences about here and now. You'll use these forms to talk about people, places, actions, and conditions as they exist now. So knowing when to use is and when to use are is a critical skill that can make your English sound much more natural and more fluent. So hopefully by the end of this lesson, you'll know the rules for is and are and also feel confident about applying them in your everyday sentences. Now, this is the foundation upon which will build your understanding of the to be verb and its nuance. So keep in mind as we move forward through this lesson that small adjustments in how you use this verb can make all the difference in how your English is understood by others. Okay, so now that we've been introduced to the to be verb and why it's so important, let's start dissecting it one piece at a time. So first, we have the form is, and trust me, this one is straightforward once you know how it works. So we use the word is specifically with singular nouns and with third person singular pronouns. Now, what does that mean exactly? So a singular noun simply refers to one person, one place, one object, or one idea. So for example, if we are talking about one single cat that is taking a nap right now, the correct way to say this is the cat is sleeping. So notice how we use is here because we are only talking about one cat, not a group of cats, just one loving, sleepy feline. Now, on the other hand, we use the word is with third person singular pronouns. These are the pronouns he, she, and it. So why third person, you might be asking? Well, in English grammar, third person pronouns refers to someone or something we are talking about, not to ourselves or the person we are addressing. That could be a man, a woman, or even an object. So for instance, if I want to describe how someone feels, I could say she is happy. Here, she is our singular pronoun, and that is why we pair it with is. The same applies to he and it. So for example, he is at home or it is raining. It's always is. So here's a good way to keep it simple and clear in your mind. Ask yourself this question when deciding whether to use is. Are we talking about one thing or one person in the third person? If the answer is yes, is the word you'll want to reach for. So to make this point stick, remember our examples. When it comes to singular nouns, we say the cat is sleeping. When it comes to singular pronouns like she, we say she is happy. That's all of it. One subject, one is. Okay, so now let's move on to the past tense. So past tense is are. Are is every bit as important as is, but it works in a very different way. And once you understand its role, you'll see how these two forms of the to be verb work hand in hand to cover all subjects in English. So whereas is helps us talk about a singular subjects, are is the form we use when we're working with plural nouns. A plural noun, as you likely know, refers to more than one person, place, thing, or idea. So for instance, if there's not one cat but multiple cats having fun, how would we describe it? We would say the cats are playing. So notice the shift here. Because cats is plural, we use are instead of is. It's a small change, but it makes a big difference. But that's not all are does. This form of the to be verb is also used with some specific pronouns, and these include the second person pronoun you and the first personal plural pronoun we and they. Now, each of these pronouns works a little differently, so let's take a look at them one by one. Okay, so first, take the pronoun you. Whether you're speaking to one person or a group of people, you always takes the verb are. For example, you are a great student. Here, it doesn't matter if I'm talking to one student or several students, the verb remains the same. Just remember, you are is the correct pairing in all contexts. Now, what about we? So this pronoun refers to a group of people that include yourself. And because it's plural, we naturally pair it with are. So for instance, we are going to the park. It's easy, right? And finally, there's they. This pronoun is used when you're talking about a group of people or things that doesn't include you. So again, because they is plural, we pair it with are. So for example, they are having lunch. So do you see the pattern here? Are steps in when we're dealing with plural nouns or with pronouns that refer to multiple people like we and they, or even the pronoun you, which breaks the singular plural rule but still always takes are. So to recap, we say the cats are playing because cats is plural. We say you are a great student, whether it's one person or many, and we say they are having lunch because they refers to more than one. Now that you know when to use are, you're one step closer to mastering these essential verbs. So if you've been paying close attention, you can probably already anticipate situations where you'll confidently use are instead of is. So great work so far. Okay, so now that we've discussed how to use both is and are individually, it's time to bring them together for a clear and concise comparison. Right, so understanding the relationship between these two forms of the to be verb is important because it helps you choose the correct one every time you form a sentence. So to make this simple, I've organized the information into a side-by-side table. So take a good look as I guide you through them on this slide right here. Okay, so on the left-hand column, we have is, and on the right-hand column, we have are. So let's begin with the left-hand column is. The word is used with singular subjects. That is, we're talking about one person, one place, one object, or even one idea. When paired with pronouns, is works with third person singular pronouns such as he, she, and it. So for example, he is reading a book. She is at the market. It is a sunny day. So notice how each sentence refers to just one subject, right? A single person or a single thing like the weather. That's your biggest clue when to use is. Now on the right side of the table, we see are. Now are is used when we are working with plural subjects, right? More than one person, place, object, or idea. When it comes to pronouns, are pairs with plural ones like we, you, they. So here are some examples. We are excited about the trip. You are learning so much today. They are preparing lunch. Right, so you notice how each example involves multiple people or things, or in the case of you, it simply follows the grammatical rule of always taking are even when you're only speaking to one person. Now this is where the two forms differ. Single versus plural. Okay, so is zeros on a singular subject while are covers plural ones. And don't forget about those pronouns, right? Is connects with he, she, and it, our third person singulars, and then are works alongside we, you, they, our plural friendly pronouns. So hopefully you can keep this table in mind, that way you don't mix up these two, and always ask yourself, is it one person or thing? You use is. If it's more than one, go with are. And when in doubt with pronouns, remember our handy pairing from the table. Okay, so let's try to put what we've learned so far into practice, right? Because understanding grammar rules is one thing, but applying them is what really helps the knowledge sink in. So on this slide, we have a short activity to test your understanding of when to use is and are. Look at the sentence on the screen and see if you can decide which one to use. And don't worry, I'll guide you step by step on each one. So our first sentence, the dog blank barking. The dog blank barking. Now here's the trick. Start by identifying the subject. Is it singular or plural? That's right, it's singular. So we are talking about one dog, not multiple dogs. And as we've learned, when the subject is singular, we use is. So the correct sentence is the dog is barking. Good. Okay, so now for the next one, we have they blank excited for the trip. They blank excited for the trip. Now, this time we're working with a pronoun. So which pronoun is it? It's they. And what do we know about they? They, it's always plural, which means we pair it with are. Good. So the correct sentence here is they are excited for the trip. Now the third sentence is the apples blink on the table. Okay, so remember, start by figuring out whether the subject is singular or plural. The subject here is apples, and since we are talking about more than one apple, it's plural. So what do we pair with a plural subject? Are. Right, so the correct sentence here is the apples are on the table. Good. Okay, so for the last sentence, we have she blank very tired. She blank very tired. So the subject here is a pronoun she. And what do we know about she? It's singular, which means we use is. So the correct answer here is she is very tired. Good. So see how easy this can be once you get into the habit of asking, is the subject singular or plural? So by using this simple question, you can choose the correct form of the verb every time. And also don't forget about the pronouns. Again, those pronouns are he, she, it. Those work with is, while we, you, they work with are. Okay, so before we move on, I think it's important for us to take a moment to talk about a few common mistakes that learners often make when using is and are. So don't worry if any of these errors sound familiar. They're easy to fix once we understand where they're coming from. One mistake I often see is mixing up is when using the pronoun you. Many people think, well, you refers to just one person sometimes, so shouldn't it take is? No, that's not correct. So always remember the pronoun you, whether it refers to one person or many, always takes the are form. So for example, if we say you is very kind, that's incorrect. The correct way of saying it is you are very kind. It's a common pitfall, so here's a quick tip to help you remember this one. So just memorize that you are always goes together as a pair. So trust me, it will stick with practice. Another frequent error is using is when the subject is plural. So for instance, the boys is running. Right? The boys is running. That doesn't work because boys is plural and is only works with singular subjects. So the correct sentence would be the boys are running. Here's where identifying whether your subject is singular or plural becomes super important. Right? So make it a habit to pause for a second and ask yourself, am I talking about one thing or more than one? So that simple question will guide you towards the correct choice every single time. So here's a tip that can really save you from making these kinds of mistakes. So before you choose is or are, take a close look at the subject and ask yourself these two questions. The first question is my subject singular or plural? Right? And then the second one is my subject one of the special pronouns like you that always takes are? Right, so this tiny pause to check your subject can make all the difference in getting the sentence right. And don't worry, you won't need to think about it forever. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel to pick up the correct verb form right away. And also remember that mistakes are a part of learning, so don't be too hard on yourself if you make one. So the good news is now you know exactly how to avoid these common traps. And catching and correcting these small errors will bring you one step closer to mastering the to be verb. So we've learned a lot about using is and are, but with many things in English, there are some special cases and exceptions. And these might feel tricky at first, but with a little bit of explanation, they'll start to make perfect sense. So let's explore a few of these situations together. So first, let's talk about collective nouns, such as team, group, or family. And these are interesting because they represent a group of people or things acting as a unit. So whether you use is or are depends on the context. So for example, the team is winning. Right? That's a correct way of saying it. Here, the team is seen as a singular unit acting together. And then we also have the sentence, the team are winning. Okay, so in this sentence, the emphasis shifts to the individuals within the team being ready. So we treat this group as a plural. Okay, so the key question to ask yourself is Am I referring to a group as a whole or to its individual members? And that will guide your choice between is and are. Now, here's an easy rule to remember, okay? So the pronoun you always takes are. Even if you're speaking to just one person, you say you are. So for example, you are my best friend, right? That's the correct way of saying it. The incorrect way is you is my best friend. So it might seem unusual because you feel singular in some cases, but English grammar rules are clear on this one. You are is always correct. Okay, now finally, let's address something that you've likely heard more often in recent years. That's the singular they. So this is used to refer to a person whose gender is unknown or someone who prefers they as their pronoun. And even though they is singular in this case, it still takes are. So for example, they are a great artist, right? So it might feel a bit odd at first, especially if you've learned that they is typically plural, but this is an important and widely accepted use in modern English. So it's good to know this kind of things. Now, these special cases might feel tricky, but with a little bit of practice, they'll soon become second nature. And remember, context is your friend when working with collective nouns. You always pairs with are, and the singular they still follows the rule of using are. So take a moment to review these, put them in your notes, and also don't hesitate to pause the video and jot down any questions that you might have in the comments below, and then we can come back to them later. You've learned the rules, tackled common mistakes, and even worked through some special cases, right? So now it's time to see how is and are show up in real life. Now, the beauty of mastering these verbs is that you can use them everywhere, whether you're having a conversation with a friend, writing an email, or even just chatting casually online. So let's take a few examples that you might encounter during your day-to-day. So imagine you're making plans for the evening and you need to tell someone, my friend is coming to dinner. Notice how we use is with the singular subject, my friend. It's simple and clear, and it works perfectly in conversations like this. Okay, now picture this other scenario. You're at a park and you see kids having fun. You can say the children are playing in the park. Since the children is plural, we use are here. It's an everyday observation, and using the correct verb form ensures your sentences sound natural and accurate. Okay, so what about when you want to ask a question? So something like, are you hungry? This is a perfect example of how we always pair are with you. So whether it's one person or more, it's also something you'd use in conversations all the time. Now think about how these sentences can apply beyond casual chats. Maybe you're writing an email to a coworker and need to update them on a project, right? So you can say something like, the report is ready for review, or perhaps you're coordinating with a group. Are the documents ready for submission, right? These same rules apply in every context, so whether professional or informal. And knowing when to use is versus are ensures that your writing and speech are polished and easy to understand. So take a moment to think about how often you use is and are in your daily interactions. The more you practice making the right choice, the more natural it will feel. And remember, these verbs are foundational, right? They create clarity and confidence in your communication, no matter the settings. So before we wrap up, let's do 3 quick quiz questions, and I'll walk you through each question, and feel free to pause the video and try them yourselves. So the first question, right? Question 1, the flowers blink beautiful. Right, so take a moment to think about it. What is the subject here? It's the flowers. And since that's plural, the correct verb form is are, right? The complete sentence is, the flowers are beautiful. Good. So now for the second one. The second question is, she blank my best friend. She blank my best friend. Here our subject is she, which is singular. So we use the singular verb is. The full sentence is, she is my best friend. This is one of the most common uses of is in a daily life. So give yourself a pat on the back if you got this one. Now for the last one, we have, we blank ready to leave, right? We blank ready to leave. So here the subject is we. That's plural, which means we pair it with the verb are. Okay, so the correct sentence here is, we are ready to leave. Now, these are kind of sentences that you'll encounter on a regular basis in conversations, emails, and other things. So The better you become at recognizing the subject and matching it to the right verb, the smoother your communication will be. Okay, so we have covered a lot of ground and that's great. So let's just quickly recap what we've learned. So first and most importantly, remember this simple rule. Use is for singular nouns and pronouns. For example, she is talented or the dog is barking. Anytime your subject is singular, is your go-to verb. On the other hand, we use are for plural nouns or pronouns and whenever you are working with you. So for example, the kids are playing in the yard or you are an excellent learner. So whether you refers to one person or a group, it always pairs with are, and this rule will never steer you wrong. So make sure you remember this one. And finally, here's the most important takeaway of all. Practice makes perfect. The more you use these rules in conversation, writing, emails, or even just chatting with your friends, the more confident you'll feel. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's just part of the process. Practice a little bit every day and watch your skills grow. Now, if you've enjoyed today's lesson and found it helpful, I would love for you to show your support. Go ahead and hit the like button on this video, leave a comment with your thoughts and share it with your friends. And also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on a new lesson that help you improve your English skills. And also feel free to follow us on social media. Thanks for watching.